On a question like this, we have to have an instantaneous reaction as far as what strategy we're going to use. Personally, I look at the answer choices first, and I notice that they're all equations. And I know that one of my strategies, my favorite strategy, is to plug points into equations. So if I can find some points, that would be really good, because then strategically, I don't really have to think too hard. I'm just plugging the points in. And I do have a graph. A graph is just a collection of points, and we can kind of see that through the dots, but honestly, the dots are only secondary here. They're a little bit of a twist. We're being asked about the relationship. We should probably just draw the line of best fit that kind of goes through the dots in that kind of mathematical way where it's kind of like the average of all the dots. So it's not perfect, but we're generally following this trend, and we want to see where the line goes by looking at the individual points that it passes through and then testing those points in the equations. So one kind of more advanced thing too is I noticed that all of the y-intercepts are basically the same. So in this case, I would kind of stay away from the y-intercept because I'd want to just see the change as much as I can from that starting point, since they're all kind of the same for all these equations. So I'm actually going to pick the point up here. And I'm going to estimate that it roughly looks like 10 to 40. It's not going to be exact when I plug it in, but anything that's close is at least a contender. So let's see what we've got here. I don't even need a calculator to do this, but 10 times 0.8 is 8, plus 83 is 91. So that is way too low compared to the 240 that I'm hoping that it is. So it doesn't work. If I keep going, I'm going to see more problems. 10 plus 85 is only 95. So that doesn't work either. And then here we get a little closer. 80 plus 83, well, that's 163, but that's still really far down, and it's probably going to be D. And that is 160 plus 85, which is 245. Not exact, but pretty darn close. And remember, I had to estimate because I don't actually have a line of best fit here. I'm just kind of drawing my own, and so being off by 5 is really not that big in the grand scheme of things. Plus, there's nothing else that's close, and that's how these estimate questions will work. Is it really shouldn't come down to just like a little subtle estimation difference. And honestly, that actually is improved the further you move away from the place where the kind of the equations intersect. So in this case, I sensed from the beginning that they were going to intersect at that y-intercept, so I moved as far away from it as I could. If you didn't notice that, that's okay. Try the y-intercept. You'll see that multiple answer choices kind of work, and then hopefully on your second point, you would move further away and you would notice the difference between the equations. Regardless, if you see equations in a question, look for points, try to plug them in. That is probably the strategy that's going to get you the answer the fastest and most efficient way.